Okay, thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. Sorry for the pause. We would like to get started, kind of trying to stay on time best we can. So our next panel coming up, Anna and I actually spoke a little bit about the title of the panel, and I wanted to make sure that, having been on a part of the conference last year with Anna and New Vocations, I wanted to make sure that we continue to discuss aftercare and also talk about some of the positives, the successful outcomes. So we were able to successfully get a great panel here today, but I also want to first start off by thanking the Arkansas HBPA who sponsored this panel. And I want to say that because of the why. I'm pretty keen to always try to ask questions and, why was the Arkansas HBPA able to sponsor this? And if you haven't been a part of some of the social media that revolves around the Arkansas HBPA and particularly Oaklawn and their Ring the Bell campaign, it's been pretty phenomenal. It's been a very positive light for what's gone on in our industry and a push and an urgency to try to make sure we do our best for horses right off the racetrack that need to go into second careers. It's been a very successful campaign. We would love to see it continue at other racetracks, but at the end of the day, I want to give the Arkansas HBPA tremendous credit for getting this program started, in particular, Ron Moquette, who's a board member, is here today. So let's first give a round of applause for that. So again, that's a basis of trying to highlight some of the successful things that have gone on in aftercare. But as Anna said, it's not all easy, and we're not going to gloss over that. And these panelists are going to talk about some of the challenges. But in all honesty, when you look at Anna Ford and what New Vocations has done within the industry, a stalwart may be the right answer. They were around before the TAA. They were around before a lot of the organizations were really established. And to her credit, or at least I'll give her the credit, she has helped develop some of what has become the national umbrellas that help in the aftercare program. So definitely want to thank Anna for all she's done. We're also lucky to have Kirsten Green successfully get here with all the flight issues from around the country. But she's now the administrator for the Retired Racehorse Project. And maybe something she doesn't know, I go a long ways back with my push in aftercare and being on the board of the TCA for many years, also being on the board for the Secretariat Center at the Horse Park in Kentucky. But I had developed kind of a friendship with Stuart Pittman when he started the RRP and that whole mindset, and brought him out to Las Vegas. I think was the first time at our conference that he really started pushing this. And I think it was 16 or 17. So we really had, a true visionary in how to develop something that would be positive and highlighting aftercare and a market for it. And I think that's what's really expanded the benefit. Also, we're very blessed to have Dr. Stephanie White here practicing in Iowa, but also with Heart, what I would call internal, coming from Adena Springs. We had our own internal program. Here with the Iowa HBPA and Prairie Meadows, having an established retirement program that can be utilized, I would say, at the drop of a hat when something's necessary. So I'm going to turn it over to Anna and hopefully work through a very successful panel and describe some of the successful outcomes, but also challenges for aftercare.
Well, thank you, Eric. Really feel blessed and honored to be here today, to be asked to speak again, and honored to be up here with these two leaders in the industry aftercare space as well. For those that don't know, I'm the Thoroughbred program director at New Vocations, and just a little bit about my background. I grew up in Ohio, the great state of Ohio. I'm a Buckeye. And while I was in grade school and all my friends were going to summer camps, soccer, baseball, softball, church camps, overnight camps, just like my daughter right now doing all these different camps, I was going to camp hot walk, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And so my dad was a standardbred, 5th-generation standardbred trainer, and we spent most of our summers doing the fair circuits, working with the standardbreds, hot walking, washing all that equipment that they wear. And so I was fully immersed in the racing industry, although it was a standardbred racing industry, very similar to the thoroughbred racing industry. And although my parents were breeding, raising, and racing standardbreds, it was in 1992 that my mom, Dot Morgan, became aware that thoroughbreds, when they were done racing, were basically being given away. And at that time, she was a 4-H advisor and had all these amazing, talented teenagers that could ride anything, but they didn't have the means to afford really nice horses. And so that's where New Vocations, the concept of New Vocations, came together. Of we've got these amazing athletes that are retiring, and we have people that would love to have them, but there's nobody in the middle to fill that gap and bridge it so that these horses can go on and be successful in second careers. So that's where New Vocations was founded. As Eric said, we put together a nice panel today. Our focus is going to be on sharing, how far we've come in the last 32 years from when we started. We're going to focus on the successes because there's a lot of them. And while we're sharing successes, we're going to share the challenges too, because it's important to know what those are. And then also, lastly, the future where we see things heading. So I'd like to start with just a quick video. Maybe. Dennis, I'm not sure if I'm doing this correct. Okay.
The heart of the thoroughbred is enduring, the mind intelligent, and the body athletic. They are warriors, they are champions, they are heroes. When they reach the finish line, many will pass their legacy and lineage onto future generations, but even more will find themselves in need of a new purpose and a second career. We must provide the time and the tools they need to transition, and ultimately, we owe it to them to find their new perfect partner. The one who is proud of their storied past and sees a bright future ahead. The one who knows they are warriors, they are champions, and they are heroes. Help us continue the Thoroughbred's legacy. Visit newvocations.org to donate.
So New Vocations' mission and focus has been to rehab, retrain, and rehome retired racehorses. That's summed up by that video saying that we're basically looking for that perfect partner for every horse that's leaving the racetrack. So just looking back over the last 10 years, really, I mean, when we started, which was in 92, it was New Vocations and then the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. There really was not any other aftercare programs, and really the word aftercare wasn't used in the racing industry. So a lot has changed during that time, and really in the last 10 years, we've seen the greatest amount of growth. And so I just broke down some of the things that we've seen. Number one being awareness. Awareness of the need for aftercare has grown greatly. I think everyone can agree on that. We've seen that through, I think it's primarily started when social media came on the scene, and we were able to really show what was going on, where were horses going, and we didn't really know where horses were going. And I know even 10, 12 years ago, if you walk through the barns or if you're talking to owners and trainers and ask them, what do you do with your horses when they retire? Most of them didn't have an answer. A lot of times the answer was, oh, my trainer finds it at home, goes to a camp. They might name a name here or there, but they really didn't have an answer. Fast forward to 2024, you walk there and talk to owners and trainers and you ask them where their retired racehorses are going, and they have an answer 99% of the time, which is great. So that's really great to see, and we continue to see that growing. The market for thoroughbred has grown greatly, and that's something that Kirsten here is going to talk about. With the RRP has played a great role in that, as well as the horse shows. We have horse shows for thoroughbreds, the TIP program through the Jockey Club, which has thousands of horses that they have now thoroughbred classes, has really helped the market grow, so that our thoroughbreds are out there being seen and more equestrians are wanting to take them on. Third, aftercare options have grown. So when we started, again, it was just 2 of us, and now there's 80 plus organizations that the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance is accrediting. And that's not to, that doesn't include aftercare organizations that maybe aren't accredited yet. There's a lot of nonprofits out there doing great work, as well as for-profit groups out there taking on our retired racehorses. So the options have greatly expanded, which is great to see. And lastly, the funding for aftercare has grown, which that we've seen that as there's been awareness, as our industry is seeing that the public really does want, the general public wants to know what's happening to our retired racehorses. That awareness has really helped with the growing of the funds, and a lot of racetracks and HBPAs are stepping up and supporting the initiative across the board, and that's really great to see. Just a quick look here at new vocations and looking at the numbers. Last year, we served 618 horses. We had those horses come from 70 different tracks across the country, and then they were adopted out to 38 different states. And then just, it's kind of probably small there, but you can see where our income is coming from, and just wanted to focus on the donation side of that is our largest. Those are private donations, and that's where we've seen the largest growth over the last 10 years, is that owners, when they're donating horses, are starting to make donations with their horses, which is great. And grants comes after that. With that, I'd like to give a little plug to the Ohio HBPA, Louisiana HBPA, and Indiana HBPA, who are all supportive of new vocations in their state, and their support annually has really helped us serve those horses, which has been great. This map here just shows our 9 different facilities that we have. They're located in Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Kentucky, Louisiana, and Florida. And again, the other map shows the tracks, different tracks that we serve, and the states that the horses have gone out to. And then this is a really interesting slide that we get a lot of questions on, especially now as funding is growing and more people are looking to see how they can help in the space of aftercare. Out of that 600 number, 516 of those horses were thoroughbreds, and 102 were standardbreds. So we do take in retired standardbreds as well. It's just a very smaller pool of horses, and it's reflected in our annual numbers. The average length of stay, which this is all about, every day a horse, you guys are either owners, trainers, or have experienced vet bills, boarding bills, like every day that you have a horse, the number goes up. So this number is really important. It's something that we follow every year. And last year's average length of stay for horses in our program was 121 days. Now, interesting, for when you pull out our standardbred numbers, that number goes up to 130 days for the thoroughbreds, which then equates to our average cost per horse going through our program is $4,500. And so for some people, they think, wow, that's a lot of money. For other people, they'll say, wow, you can do it for that little. But that number includes when we have the horses, which is going to be anywhere from that average of 121 days, all their general board care, daily care, their training, their vet care, their farrier, vaccines, and whatnot, until they get through the program. And then our average adoption fee is $1,400. So you can see where the gap is, as far as we've never, at least in our program, New Vocations, expected our adoption fees to cover the fees, what it costs for us to put a horse through the program. So I wanted to break down just to kind of show the type of horses that we get into the program. I feel like they fall into one of 3 categories. And the first one is what I would say the sound but slow horse. We used to see a lot of these horses back in the day because we were one of the only programs doing this, and we were more selective then. But the slow, sound but slow horse, the perfect example of this was a horse that came through our program by Tiz Now. His name was Tiz Game, and he was a 4-year-old. He had 5 starts, I think primarily in New York. He retired due to not being competitive, and he could have raced at a smaller track or a lower level, but his owners just really didn't want to drop the horse, and so they decided to donate the horse to New Vocations, which we loved. So Tiz Game then was able to come into our program. It only took 60 days for him to come in, have some downtime, have some minimal, just some TLC, and get used to being transitioned to being turned out and being a horse, that we were able to then find him a great home as a hunter jumper. And he later then competed at the Thoroughbred makeover last year and did quite well. His estimated cost for his very short stay of 60 days was $2,000 to go through our program, and his adoption fee was $3,500. So if we could just have those type of horses go through our program, that would be a game changer. But we know that's not the reality, right? The next category of horse is what I call a horse that needs rehab. And that represents the majority of the horses that we see coming through the program. I mean, they're athletes, right? The number one reason why professional athletes, human athletes retire is due to some type of injury. And so that's the same for horses. And the injuries that we're seeing are ranging from minor stiffness, soreness to soft tissue, fractures, arthritis, you name it, we get it. So Slam Bone is going to be my example for this category. He was a 4-year-old. He only had 2 starts when he fractured his left hind sesamoid. The fracture was the type of fracture that we could perform surgery to remove it. We did have a couple of vets look at that and say, oh, you can leave it and the horse will be maybe trail riding sound, or we can take it out and the horse can do something mid-level. And so we opted to take that fracture out so that he could have a longer, better career, a second career. So we had the surgery done. He was rehabbed in our program for 8 months. We see a lot of sesamoid fractures and a lot of sesamoid injuries, and they do heal well, but they take a lot of time. After those 8 months, we put him into some light training, and within a month, we were able to find him a home, which he was going to be in a riding career. She does more pleasure riding, and he also, 15 months later, from the date that he arrived into our program, competed in the retired racehorse makeover and in the trail division, and did quite well as well. His estimated cost was $6,000 to go through our program, and his adoption fee was $500. So the third category is what we call pasture potato, which we just branded this year. And this is a horse that, when Nomadic Fighter was his name, when we were presented with his case, he had a condylar fracture of his hind leg. It looked like his prognosis would be good, just as good as Slam Bones, where he could go on to a mid-level career and be quite fine. However, we rehabbed him for 6 months after that surgery. And once he got very sound in that hind leg, he started to show that he was not sound up front. And that's when we started doing more investigative work, more x-rays and ultrasounds, and found out that he had some issues up front that was going to limit him to not being a riding candidate. So he was adopted nearly a year after arriving. We promoted him as a pasture potato, which is a marketing campaign that we have for horses like this to try to really help them stand out and show what their value can be and what they can do. We also offer with that program that we'll ship the horse. If an adopter is willing to take this horse, we will ship it to them for free. And when if they no longer need the horse, we will ship it back. And that's our way of protecting these type of horses, because these are the horses that are in the greatest risk of falling through the cracks. So looking at the numbers, his estimated cost was $8,000. His adoption fee was $0. Well, before we get to that one, so looking at those 3 categories, those are basically the type that we get. The Nomadic Fighter group is a very slim part. That's probably maybe 20, 30 horses a year, but the rehab one is the biggest portion. And so what we've seen throughout the last 10 years is that those are the horses that we're getting more into our program, because there's so many other avenues for the sounder horses to go on to, which Kirsten will be speaking about. And that's fine. Like, that's what we feel like as New Vocations, being an aftercare program, that we're here to serve the horses in greatest need. And those are the horses that we're seeing come through our doors these days. But at the end of the day, it's just costing a lot more money to do, to get each horse through the program. Sorry. So looking to the future, what do we see here in the next 10 years or more? So I feel like the aftercare awareness is only going to continue to grow. I mean, we know that the public, the general public is watching us. They're watching our industry. And one of the big topics is they want to know where the horses are going when they're done racing. So that awareness is going to continue to grow. And I see our industry stepping up and really getting behind that, which is really great. The market for the thoroughbreds, I feel like is going to continue to grow too, because as we've had all that awareness, you have all these groups behind putting more thoroughbreds out there. And our greatest ambassadors are the horses themselves. So the more that we can get them into these second careers and promote them out there, the more people are going to be asking, like, who's that horse? Where do I get one of those? And then for us as new vocations, we're going to continue to seek opportunities to expand at our current locations. We have 9 facilities. We're maxed out at all of them. But we're always every year looking at, can we do more? If we can do more, what is it going to take? So we're going to continue to do that. And then lastly, we're always going to be seeking opportunities to expand into new states and new areas so that we can serve more horses. And just in conclusion, I just want to say that I think the future is looking really, really bright. And, you know, I'm excited to where we're heading and where we're going. It's definitely not perfect by any means. We definitely, you know, need to increase all the things that we've talked about, awareness, funding, and whatnot. But it's really, we're heading in the right direction, and it's great to see and excited to be a part of it.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm Kirsten Green. I'm the Executive Director of the Retired Racehorse Project. Eric mentioned Stuart Pittman, who is our founder. And when he founded the Retired Racehorse Project, this is somebody who made a career for himself and moved up the levels in the sport of eventing on the backs of thoroughbreds. And he had that appreciation for them and looked around one day and was like, nobody is riding thoroughbreds at the upper level anymore. And so he had this concept that it was a simple supply and demand issue and that we could have this market-based approach to aftercare. And so that's how the RRP was formed. Sorting out the slides here. We're a little bit unique, but we make a notable impact on the aftercare landscape. We don't take in horses. We're simply a marketing machine. We're trying to drive demand and kind of create that community of informed and experienced thoroughbred owners that have the capacity and the skills that are required to take on thoroughbreds and have a positive experience with them. So we don't have a facility. We don't have horses. We do run a little event called the Thoroughbred Makeover, and sometimes colloquially referred to as the RRP, which is technically inaccurate because that is, we are the RRP, the organization, and the event is the Thoroughbred Makeover. So everything that we do is with the mindset of wanting to increase the demand and kind of ease and increase the efficiency of the aftercare landscape as a whole. Let's see. So we kind of approach our work in these 3 core tenets of education, service, and inspiration. And these are some of the programs that we offer. We have an online educational library that has over 200 individually original articles. We are partners in Retired Racehorse Radio Podcast, as is New Vocations. We're also partners in a lesson app called Ride IQ, and there's additional resources such as document templates, links to allied organizations, and more. In the past 5 years, we've produced over 50 seminars and workshops. Topics range from marketing horses, nutrition, business issues for those working in aftercare, and more. We recently relaunched our free horse listing service. So this is open to any thoroughbred at any stage in their life cycle that needs to be moved on to another home. Many of the aftercare organizations do utilize this service as well as private individuals. we very much got our start as an organization at regional horse expos. Over the winter, you'd have these weekend-long events with, whole seminars schedule, whole demonstration schedule, and that's really where we got started. So doing clinics, master classes, demonstrations is a big part of what we've always done. And to date, we've presented over 260 mounted clinics or in-hand clinics that focus on conformation evaluation, riding tips and skills, that sort of thing. Part of the Thoroughbred Makeover is the Makeover Marketplace. Approximately a third of the horses that complete the event will actually be for sale or adoption after the fact. And we, as not party to a transaction or anything, just make an option available where people can come into the makeover. They can identify horses that are for sale or adoption throughout the event on results lists, on entry lists. They can watch the horses compete. They can set up times to try the horses on site. And we even have hagyards staffed up to perform pre-purchase exams for horses to be purchased there on site. And the community outreach is still a big part of what we do. We're very focused on trying to kind of create that engagement and continuity between the racing and breeding industries and the riders and OTTB owners that take the horses in the next stage of their life. And so we kind of want to bridge that gap. We're doing mailings to let breeders know that their horses are entered in the makeover. When horse registrations close for the makeover, we'll print out a whole long list, which you can kind of see happening here in this picture. 9-point font and show all the horses that are entered that year, and we'll distribute those in backstretches across the United States. During the makeover, we also try to facilitate visits to Keeneland, visits to breeding farms, and just kind of try to build that appreciation for where these horses come from and try to create fans out of thoroughbred owners. But the biggest thing for us is, of course, the Thoroughbred Makeover. It was founded and ran its first two versions in 2013 and 2014 at Pimlico Racecourse, and it's been in its current iteration since 2015 when we went national and brought it to the Kentucky Horse Park. The way that this process works is that participants, we just refer to them as trainers. They're not licensed, they're not necessarily professionals, that's just what we call them. They apply to participate first. So we look at their experience level and their skill set and their background to assure that they have, the minimum that we would want to see to have a successful and positive experience throughout this 10-month training process. They are looked at by an independent application committee, and then once they are approved, they are allowed to enter up to 3 horses in the makeover. And so they will take those horses that have all recently retired. Each year they have to have had their last race or published work no longer than 18 months prior to the start of competition. So we're dealing with a new population of retiring horses each year. So these horses will all be independently acquired, whether through adoption organizations like those here today or directly from the track. And increasingly, we're seeing arrangements where the Racing Connections still own the horses and have created an arrangement where the horse is going to be transitioned and possibly sold at the end of the process. We love to see it. So they move through this process, and throughout the year, we have a community of past trainers. We put on webinars and just really kind of try to create that support process for people that are transitioning these horses in the kind of first 12 months of their life post-racing. And then the event itself in Kentucky in October, we offer 10 disciplines and over $100,000 in prize money. So it's really just a culmination. We always call it a stepping stone. The makeover is just the start. It's not the end result. So horses that have gone through this program have been appropriately transitioned. We actually are putting eyes on every single one of them when they arrive at the horse park, checking their soundness and body condition score, and everybody is in great shape to kind of continue on and springboard into the next phase of their life beyond racing. So what that's really resulted in the last, particularly 10 years is that listing a horses RRP eligible or thoroughbred makeover eligible is something that moves horses. And we've seen that New Vocations typically has at least 30 horses that they send each year. And I know that Hart also takes advantage of listing their horses that way because it's something that people are seeking out. They want their horses to meet that eligibility criteria because they want to participate in the process. So impact. We're reaching the point in the summer where we're going to be closing up our horse registrations. So I don't have an exact number, but I know by the end of this week, we will be over 5,000 horses served through this program since its inception in 2013. We've talked about the cost of aftercare and what Anna is estimating in terms of what it costs for horses to go through new vocations roughly aligns with what we're seeing. The trainers estimate that over the 10-month process preparing for the makeover, and with current inflation and everything, we're at about $11,000 of just base costs. Your board, your basic lessons, basic vet care, therapeutics, that kind of thing, just to get to the thoroughbred makeover. And so this figure here represents the private funds that have been invested into this process. And that's also represents a burden that's been taken off of our aftercare system and enabling those organizations to serve more horses annually. Our makeover participants consistently, we're bringing in people from all over the country and Canada. Typically about 40 to 45 states and provinces are represented amongst our people entries. And it's almost always a ratio that is heavier on new people. So we do have people where the makeover is kind of a part of their business model. And so they have horses that they are producing throughout the year and selling at the end. But we also have people that this is going to be their horse for the near future. And this is going to be their goal for the first year with that partnership. So the ratio of new people is really encouraging. That says that we're continuing to expand the interest for the breed. Amongst thoroughbred makeover horses, we're noticing that the average earnings amongst our entry pool has gone up 120%. And the average starts is starting to tick down. To us, what that represents is a possible correlation in letting go of that kind of one last race syndrome. When we know that on average, we're seeing $3,000 is what people are paying for a horse immediately off the track. So that's helping to encourage timely and proactive retirement decisions, letting them retire before they have that significant injury that is going to be a costly rehab, moving them on before we reach that point. And then new for us as of last year and now permanent part of the thoroughbred makeover is the former broodmare division. So in some cases, in our pilot year, we had about 25 broodmares. They were all on average kind of in the 12 to 13 range. So not necessarily advanced age, but mares that had trouble producing consistently, weren't producing commercially viable offspring, that sort of thing. But we're not, we're still going to be around for 10 years and needed to have a job. So that is a permanent fixture of the thoroughbred makeover going forward. Challenges. Although we've been around for a while now, awareness and understanding of exactly where RRP and our thoroughbred makeover fits in continues to be a hill that we have to climb. Sometimes people say like, oh yeah, like that's the event. But more often than not, it's like, oh, so you take in the horses and find them new homes. It's getting a little bit easier to talk about what we do, but a just general fundamental understanding about who we are and the contribution that we make to aftercare continues to be something that we have to work on constantly. Like all aftercare organizations, scaling organizational capacity and launching new programs is difficult. We didn't know this when we founded the organization, but when you don't take in horses, that really limits your opportunities for grants and for traditional aftercare funding. So we're not TAA accredited because we are not a facility that takes in horses. So there's a kind of common misconception that that we are well-funded and that we're supported by the typical aftercare funding models. So we are out there trying to kind of compete in the same pool of funders and trying to progress our programs the same way that everybody else is. For us, what's next? We really kind of want to ramp up our regional presence with events. Since coming back from COVID, we haven't been on the road quite as much as we used to be. There's a lot of interest in having regional thoroughbred makeover events or alumni events, which is something that we are examining. The bigger thing for us as an organization that is trying to promote the breed and increase demand for the breed, we need to get to a place where we can quantify the thoroughbred's influence on sport. So for us, that means even if they're not competing on, Olympic equestrian teams anymore, we know that those horses, 50, 60, 70% blood, and we need to get the credit for that. There is no Thoroughbred Sport Horse Association that is advocating for them in an organized way. So, but to get to that point, and this is also a little bit of our challenge, is that the industry needs to decide that what their horses do in a second career is not something to be ashamed of, that they should be proud of what their horses are going on and doing. And we need the industry stakeholder buy-in to support that, because quantifying that influence and the things that we need for that are basically the same things that we need out of traceability. We need to have that tracking and capturing transaction points and transitions and that sort of thing at the same level post racing as we do during their racing career. So that's a big one for us that we're going to be focused on. And if you have any ideas about how we can advance that cause, I'd love to hear from you. But that is the end of my presentation. So I'm going to pass it on down to Dr. White here. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. It's been a pleasure to be up here with these two wonderful women, and actually kind of energizing to listen to these programs. I'm Stephanie White. I'm the current president of HEART. I've been associated with HEART for probably at least 10 years now. Was elected, moved into presidency in 2021 when our former leader, John Moss, stepped down. And it's a lot of work, and we're a very small organization in comparison, but I really feel like we do some pretty amazing things with the resources that we have. So we'll just start back at the beginning a little bit, starting about the history of HEART, or Hope After Racing Thoroughbreds. Back in 2011, several prominent Iowa owner and breeders got together and decided that they wanted to create an organization that would help specifically thoroughbreds from prairie meadows, so here at home. So we're a small organization and specific in that we take the thoroughbreds from prairie meadows. But that was all started in 2011. Everyone sat down and decided to get this going, got the nonprofit status. Sorry, it is a Prairie Meadows based organization, like I said, and it's a 100% volunteer board. So we have usually run about 8 people. We currently have 9 people on the board right now. We try really hard to have representation from kind of all aspects of racing here at Prairie Meadows. Someone from the Prairie Meadows side of things, someone from the Iowa Racing and Gaming Commission, someone from the HBPA, and then someone from the ITBOA. Currently, I think we're one shy on that as far as total representation, but we try to make sure that we've got input and representation from all aspects of the industry. We have some owners, we have some lay people who don't necessarily own horses, but do help take care of them, so that we can get a wide variety of backgrounds and good participation. We were lucky, not lucky, it was a lot of work. In 2019 and 2018, respectively, we became accredited to the TAA and TCA. We are the only accredited facility in Iowa, so we're quite proud of that. And honestly, it's been a lifeline as the program has grown. If we hadn't gotten accredited and then subsequently gotten grants from both of those organizations, I'm not sure that we would still be able to do the work that we're doing. We are closely modeled after new vocations. So our focus is also on rehabilitation, retraining, and rehoming. Sometimes one of the comments I hear is, oh, you rescue thoroughbreds. We do not rescue thoroughbreds. We help them move from racing into their new career. So we're very clear on the fact that we do not have to rescue these horses from anything. We try to fill in those gaps and move horses from racing into their next career. Our mission statement is also reiterates that we want to ensure a safe temporary home for the injured or non-competitive thoroughbred racehorses with uncertain futures that come from Prairie Meadows Racetrack and Casino. So again, we are specific. We wanted to keep this something that we could manage with a small group here locally. We want to provide a peaceful environment with experienced care for each horse's individual recuperative needs with adequate time for transition from the racetrack environment. And then once it's appropriate, we'll facilitate these horses into training with the goal to prepare them for their future careers and homes. So back in the beginning, just again, in 2011, we were started. And then in 2012, our very first horse was the pasture potato, which is a new category that I really like that. So we started off with a bang. 7-year-old mare had a condylar fracture that was repaired. At the time in 2012, we didn't even have a permanent facility to keep these horses out. So we took 3 horses in that year, All the Love being the first one. The home at which she was being recuperated, that family fell in love with her. They ultimately adopted her the next year. And so that was very successful. It was a long road to get there. Condylar fractures can be a long time to come back. We had some support limb laminitis. We had 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but ultimately she was healed enough. And then in 2013, she was adopted. And we've followed up with her. She actually had 3 colts. Unfortunately, one colicked and died before he was able to get started. But Love in the Rush ran at Prairie Meadows, was quite successful. Woke Up in Love is actually still competing here at Prairie Meadows. And she has been retired out to pasture. So she's living her best life now. One of the other horses that was adopted that first year was Sly Spy. I practiced on the racetrack for several years, and now I practice locally, still in the area. So I have the privilege of having taken care of Sly Spy both on the track and off the track. He was recently involved in the proposal from his owner and her fiance. They recently just got married. They have moved up to Minnesota, so he's not in my practice anymore, but he's transitioned into a wonderful, wonderful horse for Megan. And then the other one that was that year was Tempo 5, who also is still with his current owner, now 20 years old. And still some of those pictures were just taken this year. She sent them into us so that we could see how much fun she's still having with them. And he's happy and healthy and doing really well. So the program got off to a really, really great start. We have tons of other success stories. I wish I could enumerate. This picture I wanted to really show that we have a variety of follow-up disciplines that these horses can go into. They're not limited to just English, your traditional thoroughbred. We have barrel racers, we have trail horses, we have some rope horses, in addition to hunters and jumpers, and everything that are more traditional thoroughbred aftercare. I will say since inception in 2011, 152 horses have come through the HARP program and 127 have been successfully adopted, which in light of the bigger program, that is not as impressive, but for our group and for this area, I'm quite proud of that number. And the program has grown exponentially. You know, in 2012, we had 3 horses. In fact, about the first 5 years, we averaged only about 5 horses intake per year. But since 2018, the program has expanded significantly, and we've averaged 19.8 horses coming into the program and about 15.2 horses going out of the program every year. So as usual, there's a little bit of a disparity between the horses coming in and the horses going out. So we currently have kind of a steady balance of horses that we were always looking to get rehomed. I will say also, my family is now also a proud owner of a hard horse. My husband is a farrier, cranky sometimes, but fell in love with the thoroughbred that he'd been taken care of, and he's now living in our yard. I'm not sure what the plans are for him, but rumor has it we're going to start riding him. But for right now, he's just happy and beautiful to be looked at every day. Fundraising efforts from Heart, you know, again, we're pretty local. We have 2 horse shows every year. We're also looking into trying to get these horse shows to be able to fit the Thoroughbred incentive program. So we'll be adding that to try and encourage more Thoroughbred participation. We have a silent auction every year held here at Prairie Meadows. I'm sure local people around here know it's usually on a big Iowa racing weekend, and we try to get lots of donations and great items for the silent auction. Last year, we started a benefit dinner that's held here close to the track, and a lot of horsemen came and helped participate with that, and that's been very successful. There's also a per start contribution program that we run through Prairie Meadows. And so owners can opt in to participate in that program, which has also been very successful. The big heavy lifting has been done by the TAA and TCA, the grants on those, in addition to some other grants that we've been able to secure, along with some private donations. Probably one of our biggest challenges are the horses that we get in that are just the pasture potatoes. This is one that we've just recently got adopted. Hayden's Havoc had a sesamoid fracture that was not amenable to surgery, gave him the time off, tried to put him back into training, and he would come up still a little bit lame. So we have some horses that just don't have an athletic career, and horses are expensive to keep and to take care of. And so finding someone that just wants to have a horse to love and look at, those people sometimes are very difficult to find. So we were really lucky. This particular horse got adopted recently, and actually that owner has reached back out because she's interested in finding him another companion. So we're pretty excited about that. All horses that meet our criteria, having raced or worked at Prairie Meadows, will be accepted into the program, and we will then do surgery and the rehabilitation when necessary. We do, which we didn't talk about this. We do have a euthanasia or guidelines in place. So if it becomes necessary, if for some reason a horse has sustained injuries that we aren't able to overcome, or if we get complications after they come into the program, we do have euthanasia guidelines that we follow. We've been very, very lucky that that has not been anything that we've had to do very often. We do, again, do the surgery and rehabilitation and try to find them homes. Twilight Fantasy is another horse. He's still in the program, but rumor has it that people who are taking care of him have quite fallen in love with him. He's probably our most dramatic success story. He slabbed, was in the barn, actually was getting set to be euthanized. The trainer didn't want to do surgery on him. One of our heart board members went by and was like, hey, by the way, what about taking this horse into the heart program? And so literally saved from the brink of death, and came back and has been a fantastic horse. Unfortunately sustained an injury in pasture recently, and so is back to being rehabbed again. But again, like that current care facility, he's got a great personality, and they really, really have enjoyed having him. So it's anticipated that he's going to be adopted out by that family. Our challenges are kind of the same as everyone's. We have a little more struggle with the marketing here in Iowa. We've really saturated the local market. Iowa isn't necessarily a go-to place to find a thoroughbred. We do have a good thoroughbred community in the area, and we do have people come from surrounding states, but we don't have necessarily a lot of people clamoring at the door for thoroughbreds. So we need to try and expand our marketing and try to find some other avenues to get these horses into new homes. Fundraising, of course, like every other nonprofit, is a struggle. We're a small board, and we have limited resources between us, and then limited resources in this area. And unfortunately, we don't necessarily have anyone who specializes in fundraising, although it is something we all try really hard to participate in and keep that going. And then we have the occasional adoption failures. We work really hard. Our adoption contract is really specific. We spend a lot of time trying to make sure we match the right horse to the right person. Unfortunately, sometimes that is a mismatch for a variety of reasons. And so we have to either take the horse back in or find it a new home. And that's always disappointing, and we try really hard to avoid that. But those things absolutely happen. And then probably another big struggle, because we're such a small group, is just finding more volunteers to help participate. The horse community in Iowa, I think, is strong and enthusiastic, and there is a lot of love for the thoroughbred here. We just need to maybe find a way to harness that a little bit better and get a little bit more outside participation in what we've got going. Our program goals, again, just to continue to help this at-risk most population. We consider ourselves, a fill-in-the-gap organization to help these horses maybe they get hurt or they're just no longer competitive, and taking the time to find a new home, that's what we can help do. Lots of times either when the horses are here, they don't have the local connections or perhaps don't have the time or don't have the resources to get this horse let down a little bit and then started back into a new direction. And that is where we really want to continue to help that population. I also really love a way to find some secure and consistent funding that we can continue to expand upon, as well as expanding our market for placing horses. We think need to really expand our reach on where we're advertising, and letting more people be aware of the horses we have in the program and where we can help with them. And then, of course, just increase our volunteer participation, and then just education about the program and everything that we have going for it. We really have some amazing people helping with this organization, and we have some amazing horses that come through it, and really would like to get the word out there and find homes for all these horses. Thank you.
We have a couple minutes for any questions. I know we have a microphone if anyone has any.
I'm not sure if it's really a question, but Aftercare has come so far from where it was when I started in the industry 40 years ago, when it was almost non-existent. And as Anna said, even 25 years ago, I think she was one of 2 organizations in the country. And I want to praise Anna Ford. She will not take the credit, but the aftercare industry would not be where it is today if it weren't for Anna. And you see how big her organization is now. It started with her and her mom. Her mom, I believe, was on the standardbred side. Anna was on the thoroughbred side in Ohio. And when I first started this job, we were racing for $4,000 at Beulah Park. We had a lot of horses in bad situations. And every single time I called Anna and said, you know, I need help. You got to help me with this horse. We got to find a home. Otherwise, he's going to end up in a bad situation, may not make it. And without fail, she helped me out. I believe, and I don't speak for my board, but I think we will always support New Vocations and the work that Ann has done, as well as some other organizations that do great work for our horsemen in Ohio. And I encourage every group in here to support any aftercare foundation that you think's worthy of your support. But certainly New Vocations, I know Heart is a great group here in Iowa, and some other local groups are worthy of support. But I think it's important that our organizations help fund these groups, because the costs don't go down, they go up every year. So
Thanks, Dave.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone up there, and New Vocations as well. I've donated 3 grand looking animals that were just pretty slow in the last year, and they've taken them all in the right direction. And I try to support all the aftercare groups. So thanks for what you do.
Leroy's got a question up front, and then Ed. Go ahead, Leroy. You got to turn it on.
Hey, there we go. Leroy Guessman. I just wanted to say thanks to all of you for all your efforts you do in aftercare. I think it's such an important part of our business. But I want to especially thank Dr. White. I was one of those original people that helped set this up, the Heart organization. And what John and Victoria have done with this organization is amazing, and the whole board. And I thank you, Dr. White, for now being the president and relieving John. And it's so important to have this programs at all of our tracks. And it's difficult because of, as you say, the $8,000 to $10,000 in in rehoming each individual horse and raising that money. But thank you guys for all your efforts.
Time for one more question with Ed.
Not a question. I just wanted to echo what Dave said. You know, thank all of the organizations that take care of these horses, but New Vocations and Anna in Louisiana have been transformative
Yes,
for the aftercare in our state. So thank you.
absolutely. Well, I want to echo all of that. I think, again, a lot of you know my history in the aftercare programs, riding polo ponies that were, you know, I had an allowance winner from Exarban that I played for years. So it's definitely not a rescue. So thank you. That means a lot to me because these horses have a tremendous career afterwards. And I also want to acknowledge Jen Reutz, who remains on our aftercare committee as an advisor. You know, the ambassador program was something that Stuart talked about those years ago. And I'm happy to finally see the statistics in what we were trying to really get established in that mindset of not necessarily just one more start. You know, that was the real goal, and finally seeing real data that prove that has really resonated through the industry is very, very satisfying to me personally. So thank you for this panel, and I appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you.